Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. It's National Master Belakis. Welcome back. And today we're gonna analyze a game from Garry Kasparov, who was the 13th World Chess Champion in the world, and he is still one of my favorite players at all time. So let's see the game. White started with c4, which is the English opening, and Kasparov started with g6. Even though the game will transpose in the King's Indian, against the English he wants to set up with bishop g7, d6, e5, and e5, and only then putting the knight to f6. So he was waiting for the right move order to see if he's gonna be or not gonna be a King's Indian. White played d4, bishop g7, knight c3, knight f6, e4, and d6. By transposition of moves, we got to the King's Indian, where black is putting a lot of pressure on the long diagonal with the bishop from g7, and white has a lot of space advantage. Black has all the pieces on the board, and that's the biggest plus for those of you that you like to attack and going for complicated middle game positions. It's a good way to start to try to complicate matters. So bishop e2, short castle, and bishop g5. This system against the King's Indian, it's very dangerous because bishop g5 is putting pressure on the knight, and basically it's much harder for black to accomplish e5. So for example, if black would play e5, then pawn takes, queen takes d8, trading queens, and now the knight on f6 it's pinned, and white could just simply take on f6 and play knight d5 and forking the knight and the pawn. It's a double attack, and once you move the bishop, I could take on c7 right away, but I could just develop a knight and attack the bishop and cover the d2 square if black wants some counterplay on a d2. And then after bishop h6, let's say knight takes c7, and you will win the rook. So let's get back to our game, and after bishop g5, Kasparov played knight b to d7. Now white played an interesting move, queen c1. The idea of queen c1 is that he prepares bishop h6. The bishop obviously will be protected by the queen, and once the bishop blocks the black h pawn on h6, white could just play h4, h5, and open up the h file for the rook. So this is a little bit complex situation here, and black must react very energetically. So black played c5 right away. Usually when you're attacked on the side, you want to counterattack in the center, and c5 is attacking the pawn on d4. White need to respond either way by knight f3 protecting or capturing or pushing, but he needs to respond to c5. And obviously white pushed d5, gaining more space advantage, blocking the center, and he still wants to continue with his plan with bishop h6, h4, h5. And now Kasparov played b5. Now what's the idea of this move? Even though he started like a King's Indian, he transposed in a banker gambit. Now black is threatening b4 to attack the knight on c3 and then pick up the pawn on e4. So again, white has no time to make his moves, his attacking moves, or stick to his plan on the king side. So he has to capture on b5, and here it goes again in banker style a6. So it's a typical position for the banker, when you sacrifice the B and A pawn, and you have the A file open and the B file open for the F rook, where you could pressure the pawns on A2 and B2. Obviously, like we discussed before, the bishop on G7 plays a huge role in this line. White played A4, a typical move. White is trying to stabilize the queen side and trying to have the A3 square for the rook and the B5 square for his bishop or for his knight. So this way he could block the A and B file for against the black rooks. And here it comes, Queen A5. Very energetic move, pinning the knight on C3, and this knight is protecting the pawn on E4, so black is threatening already. Knight captures E4, opening up the sniper from G7, the bishop from G7, the knight will attack the C3, and the queen will attack the C3 knight. So black sacrificed the pawn, but it's already, he already has compensation. Bishop D2, protecting, covering the pin, and now pawn takes B5. So the first stage of the plan was to open up the A file, and the second stage of the plan is to open up the B file, so you could swing the rook over to B8, the F rook, and then the bishop from C8 will go to A6, and you want to trade the white square bishop off. So here white had two options: knight takes B5 and bishop takes B5. Obviously pawn takes B5 drops a rook, so it's not even a question, and knight takes B5 is a natural move because now bishop D2 makes sense and is with tempo, and the bishop attacks the queen. Black played queen B6, and now white had to protect the E4 pawn. I don't really like how white opening went, because white wasted a lot of moves, tempos, with bishop G5, bishop D2, queen C1, queen C2, and he didn't accomplish anything on the king side. Plus the white king is in the center, plus the knight and the rooks are still undeveloped, so white is behind development. Black with bishop A6 finished development, connected the rooks, and is already pressuring the B5 knight, and is already setting up tactics for the back rank by capturing on B5 multiple times. White played knight F3, natural developing move, preparing castling, and this was the moment where Kasparov took advantage of the fact that white delayed so much castling and left his king in the center, and he captured on B5, bishop takes B5, and a beautiful queen sacrifice. Queen takes B5, pawn takes B5, and rook takes C1. Well, maybe you guys ask yourself, what's such a big deal? Yes, white is up a queen, but in compensation black has a rook and a knight and initiative and attack on the king. So bishop C1 to protect the king, and now knight takes C4, another beautiful move. The queen has to protect the bishop. The queen was overworked, and now the center just falls apart. Short castling, and the knight just came back. Now you have to be very careful when you play against the queen and you have an unbalanced material, and you just want to make sure that the queen cannot attack your pieces, fork your pieces. You have to be careful about how you set up your pieces, and at the same time you want to you want to keep initiative, you want to keep your pieces active, but you gotta just be careful how you do it. So obviously white has a lot of weaknesses. d5 pawn is weak, b5 pawn is weak, b3 pawn is weak. Black could just play simple rook b8, pressure on b5. He could play knight b6 and pressure on d5. Everything's so weak. So white is trying to trade off his weaknesses, and that's why he played b4. He wants to trade off the b2 pawn for the c5 pawn. And if he could trade off all the pawns on the queen side, then he doesn't have to worry about a pawn later on the queen side. After knight takes d5, bishop d2. Now the rook is attacking the black rook. However, this rook is protected, and where the rooks they belong, to open file, double up. When pawn takes c5, rook takes f1 check, rook a1 check, black rook is active, bishop is super active, the knight on d5 super active, controls so many squares, right? 8 squares, and now the other knight is ready to join to the party on c5. So activity and quality pieces. White played king e2 and a knight takes c5, and these two powerful knights, they control so many squares together, and plus the attack on the king. Queen c4, and now very important move, e6. You want to have a pawn protecting your knight. Why? Because this knight in the center just dominates the board. You want to have this knight in the center, and at the same time this knight is eyeing the b pawn. b6 right away. White wants to get in with the queen and in black position. If you will not play b5, b6, you have nothing to attack. You don't have no plan, basically, and it's much harder now to play with white. So white is creating squares for his queen and sacrificing the b pawn. Knight takes b5, queen b6, queen b5, and knight b to d7. The knight came back, and now the knights are protecting each other, and also they cover the back rank, and also it could help to protect the king in any case that white his queen will get on the 8th rank. Bishop e3, and now bishop f8. Knight d4, and now black start attacking the king. Rook a2 check, king f1, and he repeated the move. Probably just wants to gain time on the clock, or gaining more time is when you're not sure what to do, you just repeat the position. It's common practice in Grandmaster's games. And now black pushed e5. Every single time your opponent has a knight in the center, you want to attack it or you want to trade it. You want to force him to move away. That knight is a very active piece. Knight c6, rook a2 check again, king f1, rook a1, king e2, rook a2. They repeat it 2 times. So if black would play rook a1, it will be a draw. But Kasparov never wanted to play for a draw, and he played rook a6. Now he's threatening rook b6. The rook will be protected by the knight and will attack the queen. And now it's kind of white forced to take on c5. Knight takes, bishop takes, knight takes, and g3. This is a natural move because he wants to hide the king on g2 after rook a1 check, king g2. And now black is improving his position with knight e6. Now this knight plays a huge role again, protects the bishop protects the base of the pawn structure on d6, and this knight could jump to d4 or to c5 anytime. So queen b8, it's an annoying move because the queen, it pins the bishop to the king, and now rook d1, queen b2, so you can push d5 because the pawn hangs, so you can't really advance the pawns. Rook d5, queen b8, and rook c5. This was the 40 move of the game, and Kasparov, he wants to advance the d pawn and e pawn, but he can because the knight is always attacking the e5 pawn. So the rook c5, white played knight e7 check, king g7, and now knight c8. You can still not push the d5 pawn because I will take on e5 with check. So Kasparov played rook d5, queen a8 attacking the rook, and rook d2. Now his idea is that he could maneuver the knight to c5 to d3 and pressure the f2 pawn, or from c5 to e4 even sometimes, by pushing d5 and attack the f2 pawn. So he's launching the attack against the king. Knight c5, like we discussed, knight c4 attacking the rook, and now rook d4 attacking the knight, and bishop e7, very important move. Now the bishop is not pinned anymore, and the bishop can join to the party, to the attack at any time. h4, white wants to play h5, so black stops that by h5, and now the king has an extra square on h7, and now knight d5. What he wants to do? Well, he wants to capture the bishop. Bishop d8, and even though the bishop is all the way back, this bishop controls all the squares, half of the squares, right? 4 square where the knight can move. So if queen takes d8, obviously rook takes d5, and followed by rook d2 and e4, knight d3, and picking up the f2 pawn. And with these 2 pawns, it will be an easy win. So after bishop d8, white played king f3, knight e6, queen c6, and rook d2, giving up the d4 square for the knight, king e3, and here's a beautiful move, rook e2 check. Obviously, if king takes e2, knight d4 fork, and after king d3 I pick up the queen, and I'm up a piece, easy win. King d3, now e4 check, the king is in the center, and now everything changed. The old evaluation of the position changed because the white king is really weak. Rook c2 check, knight c3, and once the piece is pinned, I just attack that piece with the bishop on f6 and rook on c2. Queen takes a4, rook takes c3 check, king d5, rook c5 check, king d6, bishop e5 check, king d7, rook c7 check, king e8, bishop f6, and you cannot stop rook e7 checkmate. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. It was a very interesting game, full of energy, attack, sacrifices, unbalanced material. It teaches you how to attack, how to fight for initiative, and I really enjoy Kasparov games. Reminds me of Tal, Polgar, Judith, Shirov, Alekhine. They are all great attacking players. See you soon.